Hi friends, welcome back to Miscellaneous Chats with Misty Rizzo. I'm your host Misty, and I'm super excited for you to be joining us for this week's newest episode. So this week, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what my grief experience has been like the past couple of months, as well as a couple of things that I've also gathered from other friends and other women that have been through pregnancy loss. The first thing I want to start with is I felt like in that, 7 stages of grief, I hit that denial phase really fast and just full force. My version of denial personally was acting like I was totally fine. After the miscarriage and the DNC, I wasn't really allowing myself to have many emotions. Obviously, I was very sad about the situation. But for the first week or so, I just kept telling myself, God has a plan. Worst part is over. Just have to keep pushing. I was just trying to keep moving forward because it feels like everything else around you, the world, your family members, your close friends, they're all obviously very sad for you, but they have their own lives and they keep going to work and they keep doing things on the weekend and you feel stuck. So I just kept trying to act, quote, normal, just trying to move forward and pretend things were fine. That did not work out very well for me in the end, and we'll kind of get there later, but the denial comes on really, really fast. And that looks different for everybody, but that was my personal experience. That being said, I did want to bring up a topic. I want to start this off by saying I am not berating anybody. I'm not yelling at anybody, but there are some things that I would like to specify that you absolutely should not say to anybody experiencing pregnancy loss. And when I say that I'm not mad at anybody about this, it's because I understand the mindset. I think prior to having a miscarriage, prior to experiencing pregnancy loss firsthand, I probably would have said some of these things. But going through it now, I just wanted to bring up a couple of them to bring awareness to the subject, and then kind of talk about the things that you should say or what you should do. So I have a little list here that some of them are things that I personally heard, and some of them are things that other people have mentioned that they have heard from other people telling them, if that makes sense. So the first thing I have is it wasn't meant to be, or it's just not your time. I understand that. I get it. The second thing on the list is God has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. Those 4 things kind of go together. I agree. God does have a plan. But in that moment, when you're just like in the middle of the shitstorm and you are drowning in all of the emotions all at once, 24/7, those are not helpful things to hear. And it's not that we're trying to be negative Nancy's or that we just don't care about what you have to say. Those things just are not helpful at that time. Another thing is, at least you're young, you have plenty of time, you can always try again, at least you can get pregnant. Again, no one is saying that those things are not true. They're just not helpful. You'll be a mom one day. You'll be a dad one day. That one is something that I personally have heard and actually drives me to insanity because we are parents. I am a mom. My husband is a dad. Unfortunately, our baby is just not here. And so that's something that really actually genuinely upsets me. And I would like to bring it to your attention that there is even a bereaved Mother's Day and there is a bereaved Father's Day. So those are nationally recognized holidays, whatever you want to call them. Bereaved Mother's Day is on May 5th and bereaved Father's Day is on August 25th. We are recognized. We are parents. Sage is our daughter. She may not be here, but she is and always will be our daughter. She has a place in our home. I mean, it's just insane to me that somebody would even say you'll be a mom or you'll be a dad one day. That I have no words for that. The last thing I have here is anything that starts with at least. So at least it was early. At least you never heard the heartbeat. At least you didn't know the gender. At least you know you can get pregnant, whatever. At least you were young. Again, not helpful. And let me explain each one of these. At least it was early. That literally doesn't matter. We talked about this a little bit last episode, whether you are 6 weeks along or 36 weeks along. It is all awful in its own ways. At least you never heard the heartbeat. We were able to hear Sage's heartbeat at our very first appointment. So I haven't experienced this, but I imagine that is just a really crappy thing to say to somebody, or at least you didn't know the gender. Again, we were fortunate enough to find out the gender, but I don't think that telling somebody, at least you didn't know the gender, is helpful in the slightest. At least you know you can get pregnant. Again, not helpful, but especially for women that have experienced pregnancy loss, you telling us at least you know you can get pregnant means nothing to us, because to us, we now acknowledge that getting pregnant does not equal a baby. So no one's mad. Well, I won't say no one's mad, because there are definitely some women out there that are mad. Personally, I am not mad. I'm not here to punish anybody or put you in timeout. I just want to, make people aware of the things that they are saying. And when someone is coming to you, I mean, really with any sort of crisis or emotions, whatever, I have found what has been very beneficial for me is sometimes I have bad days and I get really, really sad and I want to cry and I want to grieve the loss of my daughter and grieve the experience of being pregnant for the first time. When I call you or I FaceTime you or I text you, all I need you to say is, I am so sorry for your loss and I can't even imagine what you're going through right now. I'm here for you. And let me cry. Hold me. Cry with me. I don't care. But sometimes I want to be a negative Nancy. Sometimes, okay? It just happens. Moving on from that, I also want to bring up the fact that most of us are fully aware that all of the heartbreak, the pain, tears, anxiety, suffering, etc., it will all be worth it one day, right? We're going to get our rainbow babies and all will be well. But right now, especially in the beginning, like for me, we're only 2.5 months from the miscarriage and it's been a journey. And right now we're still kind of in the depths of it. And even if you aren't, we have lost our babies. All of us in this community, we've lost our babies, and you cannot tell us to just get over it and move on. It is different for everybody. The grief process is different for everybody. Some people do get up and move on, and that's great. And I'm so happy that they're able to do that. But there are others, like myself, who really, really struggle. And that's also okay. Grief is not something that gets smaller. People say it gets easier over time. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Grief is not something that just goes away or gets smaller. Rather, it's something that we learn to grow bigger around and we learn to adapt with and move forward with. We don't move, forward from it. We just move forward with it, and that's okay. The next thing I want to talk about is my postpartum experience. So a lot of people also don't realize that women who have had a miscarriage go through postpartum, which sounds silly, but I was pregnant and now I'm not. So that's how postpartum works. Hormone-wise, whether you, again, are 6 weeks or 36 weeks, there's not much of a difference. In the very, very beginning, your body is being pumped full of hormones very, very rapidly. And that's why we usually have this slew of onset pregnancy symptoms. So when I had my miscarriage, I had a lot of things happening. Something that I'm still struggling with to this day, if you can't tell via the podcast, brain function, cognitive function is very slow. I've had a lot of brain fog. I've had a lot of struggle with words, which is why I say a lot. I'm so sorry. But I struggled with a lot of brain fog, and I struggled with hot flashes so bad. Other than that, I didn't have too many like physical symptoms that I can really think of. However, postpartum depression really hit me hard. And that's something that I want to bring a light to because, again, I don't think people think about these things. And again, that's also okay. I'm not here to yell at anybody. I'm just here to bring awareness. But, you know, if you think about it, I was pregnant and then I wasn't, and I didn't get to bring a baby home. And that's a really sad situation. My postpartum experience looked like, in the very beginning, like I mentioned, that denial, just everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And then it just wasn't anymore. After about a week or two, I just had this constant 24/7 battle with my emotions. I was crying all the time, which, again, not necessarily bad, but it was a lot. I was crying all the time. I had really bad racing and intrusive thoughts, a lot of anger, and then I would get angry that I was angry, and I would cause myself to have panic attacks. I was having suicidal ideation. It got really bad really fast, and I tried to fight it, and I tried to pray about it. You know, God, please, I'm just trying to surrender all of my feelings to you. I don't want to feel this way anymore. Like, I'm tired. I'm in this mental warfare 24/7, fighting for my life, fighting with myself every waking moment of the day. I'm not sleeping because when I lay down at night, I was constantly like replaying all of the worst moments from the past few weeks in my head. You know, the doctor telling us there's no heartbeat, scheduling the DNC, having my miscarriage at home. Like, there was no turning off my brain. And I couldn't figure it out anymore. So I ended up calling my psychiatrist. I have a psychiatrist because I take ADHD medications. And they are a controlled substance. So I have a psychiatrist just for that. I don't see her for anything else. But I thought, I need help. And I've been praying for God to give me an answer. And I feel like God is saying, hey, you have resources. So I literally, I don't remember exactly, you know, at what point this was. At some point, a couple weeks after the miscarriage, I just woke up one morning and I was like, oh my gosh, why am I not using my resources? So I was driving to work and I call my psychiatrist, and the receptionist is like, you know, what can I do for you? And I said, I am not supposed to see so-and-so for, you know, a couple of months. And I straight up just told her, I said, I am having suicidal ideation and I need to talk to her as soon as possible. And I'm very grateful that I have had very good providers through all of this, because I know that is not the experience for everybody. And my heart goes out to people who do not have the support systems that they should. That's a whole topic in itself that I'll get to at some point. But I'm very grateful to have the medical team that I have. And so they scheduled me same day. And I met with my psychiatrist later that day, and I just cried, and I told her everything that was going on. And at the time, so I actually, y'all don't make fun of me, I did not know this. I did not know the term suicidal ideation until recently. But I was explaining to my psychiatrist, I was like, I don't want to, I'm trying to think of a different word because I don't want to get censored or flagged on any platforms. But I was like, I don't want to do the action myself. I don't want to take myself out. But I would not mind if I didn't wake up in the morning, or I wouldn't mind if I was driving home on the freeway and an 18-wheeler just creamed me. Like I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because it's crazy to me. So I told her, I'm like, it's not that I want to take action and do it myself, but I just wouldn't mind if something happened to me and I wasn't here anymore. And I was tired of feeling that way because I knew that wasn't me. Those weren't my thoughts. And so she actually told me the term. And I had someone else mention it to me before as well. I was explaining those emotions to a friend, and they told me the term. And so I brought it up to her, and she confirmed. And so we went on, and she suggested that I seek therapy, because my psychiatrist we don't really do like talk therapy together or anything. It's pretty much just medication management. So she did put me on an antidepressant and suggest that I go to therapy. So I started therapy like the following week, I think, and it was good. My therapist was decent. I think everybody should do therapy at some point in their life. We've all been through a little bit of something, and some people swear by therapy. For me personally, I'm not a huge therapy fan. I think I do very well talking to people on my own, just friends or family, or talking about my feelings when I need to, hence the podcast. And it's very helpful to talk about things personally. But also something that I wanted to talk about in the podcast was just breaking the stigma on medication. So my psychiatrist put me on an antidepressant, which is in the category of SSRI. Don't ask me what that means. You can Google it. I don't remember. But basically, it boosts the serotonin in your brain. And I'm not on a very high dose. I'm on a pretty low dose of my medication. But within 5 days, I remember, I think I talked about this last episode, but I remember I started taking it on a Thursday, and by Monday, I was sitting on the couch with my husband, and I told him, I said, babe, my brain is quiet. And I sat there sobbing on the couch because I was just in disbelief that the medication could work that fast. Obviously, I wasn't like at 100% at that point, but I had started to notice changes within 5 days, and it felt really, really good. My brain started to shut down, and I wasn't having those intrusive thoughts, and I wasn't constantly thinking about, replaying all of the awful things that had happened within the past couple of weeks. But I want to mention that I just feel that there is this stigma on medications, whether it be antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, even ADHD meds, things like that. I think there's this really negative stigma on them. And part of me gets it because I do think that people, if they don't have the correct providers, the dosing can be off and people are just taking medication to take it. And I don't know. I do get that side. Those things can happen. But personally, for me, this is going to sound silly, but I love my antidepressant. So I started taking it Thursday. I think I told this story in the last episode. Like a week later, I started taking it Thursday. By Monday, my brain was quiet. And then the following weekend, we had gone to one of my niece's cheer competitions. And my husband and I were standing at concessions. And I was like making a joke, and then I just started smiling really big, and I was like, wow, if you would have told me a week ago that I would be here genuinely having a good time, I wouldn't have believed you. Because I was at the point before I started the medication that I didn't think I could get better. You know, I reached out to the doctor, obviously hoping they could help, but I was at the point where I felt like there was no coming back. And that's a really, really crappy place to be. And I don't know. I think that medication in general for a lot of different things gets a bad rap, and it shouldn't. I'm not over here promoting antidepressants, and I don't think everybody needs to be on them, and I don't think I'll be on them forever, but it has definitely made a significant improvement in my life and helped with my grieving process because I'm able to think clearly and I'm able to acknowledge my feelings when I have them, but in a controlled way. Because before it was my feelings, there was no control. There was no control at all. And now, for the most part, I have good days, but every once in a while I have bad days, but they don't consume me. I'm not sitting in the corner of my couch crying for 7 hours straight. You know, I don't know. That's my TED talk about medication, I guess. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about ways that we have chosen? I don't know. Ways that we have honored sage in our lives. This is going to look different for everybody depending on, you know, what stage you were when the pregnancy loss occurred. For us, it's more of little things around the house that we were physically able to obtain to memorialize her. One of the first things that I bought was a picture frame that says, "A piece of my heart lives in heaven." And it has a little clip on it that you clip a picture to. And we put her sonogram picture on there, her ultrasound on there. And then I got a little willow tree figurine where it's like a little angel holding a handful of forget-me-not flowers. And we have a box with a couple of pregnancy tests and some of the first outfits that we bought for her. I recently actually just found this beautiful painting at Hobby Lobby that is an angel holding a baby. I don't know. I wish I could show you a picture. It's beautiful. But just different things like that around our house to memorialize her, as well as my husband and I both recently just got tattoos of a bouquet of sorts. I actually drew it myself, and I'm very proud of it. So our daughter's name is Sage Juniper Rizzo. So the bouquet has sage leaves, it has baby's breath, a poppy, which is the August birth flower, which was her due date. It has forget-me-nots, and then it has a juniper berry stem on it, with her name as well. And just little things like that, you know, like Sage will always have a place in our home permanently. She will always have a place in our heart. She is our daughter no matter whether she's here or not. And that is something that no one can ever take from me. And I will never stop talking about her. You know, I think it's weird that people have this taboo stigma thing not against, you know, I'm not trying to play victim here, but I think that people have this taboo mindset towards pregnancy loss and that we're not supposed to talk about it. And like I've said before, that's kind of the point of this podcast. I just want to be open and talk about these things because it is so common and people aren't aware of that because nobody talks about it. And I think that it's okay to talk about. It's great to talk about. I love talking about my daughter, and I will never stop. A couple of things that helped me change my mindset postpartum, before and after, like, being diagnosed with postpartum depression and going on medication for it. One of the main things that helped me change my mindset was the way I said things to myself. So I would find myself, there's a influencer that I follow on social media, and she was like a week behind me. So whenever she was, 10 weeks, I would be 11 weeks. Whenever she's 15 weeks, I'd be 16 weeks. So every week when I would see her little post about, her bump and how far along she was, I would just sit there and be sad. And I'm like, I should be 14 weeks right now. Like, this isn't fair. I should be this. I should be whatever. So I started changing my mindset and my words, and I would say, I would have been 14 weeks. I would have been 16 weeks, whatever. I know that seems insignificant and it doesn't sound like a big change or a big deal, but it really did help me, because it stopped me from spiraling about the would have been and should have been, but acknowledging that I noticed it. The other thing was being thankful for my body and not feeling, not hating myself and feeling like my body failed me. I know a lot of women that personally feel victimized by their bodies after pregnancy loss. It's an awful situation, and there are many, 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 many women out there who feel like their bodies failed them. Their body didn't do what it was supposed to do to protect their baby and to keep them healthy and to grow their baby. And I would say, I'm no doctor and I haven't looked up the statistics on this, but I would say 98.99999% of women who experience pregnancy loss, it's not their fault. It is something completely out of their control, whether it be a chromosomal abnormality or just, some sort of disorder that the fetus had, that the life was just no longer viable, whatever it may be. Most of the time, it is not something that was in the mom's control. So I never really experienced, super briefly, I had a phase of feeling like my body failed me. But again, I was trying to do so much work to like change my mindset. So I actually made a list of affirmations, and I would read them to myself in the morning in the mirror. And I was just trying to acknowledge that my body did grow a human for a little bit. My body was able to conceive and grow the baby and nourish it for as long as it could. And when my body recognized that the life was no longer viable, that there was a chromosomal abnormality, my body did what it needed to do to expel the baby. I'm not sure what terms to use here. I'm so sorry, but I'm trying my best. But I was just trying to change my mindset, just using different words and trying to be more appreciative. So I have a list of affirmations here that I want to read. These are the ones that I read to myself in the morning in the mirror. I said, this was much more recent that I put this one. I'm so proud of the hours you put in to heal and grow. There are happier moments on the way. Don't give up. God is not done until it's good. Your happiness and your peace are non-negotiable. Future you is looking back and she's so proud that you did not give up. I am strong and powerful. My body is capable of a healthy pregnancy, and my body can do amazing and wonderful things. There was a moment in time where I read that to myself one morning and I sobbed in the mirror because I believed all those things. And I'm not a perfect human, and I don't believe all of those things every single day, but I am very proud of how far I've come in a short amount of time and how much work and effort I've put into moving back to a new normal and finding my new normal and moving forward with this grief. Like I said, you don't leave it behind. The grief doesn't get smaller. You just learn to grow with it and you bring it with you, and that's okay. Another thing, something that was in my affirmations, your happiness and your peace are non-negotiable. This is something I want to really kind of hit heavy on. Setting boundaries and standing up for yourself when other people are saying things that bother you or trigger you. I know people like to throw the word trigger around, and some people don't like the word trigger because they think it's dramatic, but in this sort of situation, women going through pregnancy loss definitely have triggers. In the beginning, for me, it was as simple as being around somebody else who was pregnant or seeing a pregnancy announcement on social media. Those type of things are legitimate triggers for people going through pregnancy loss. And it can be as simple as a picture or a smell or a sound. It's really, really hard, and you never know when it's going to hit you. But the setting boundaries and standing up for yourself is one thing that I did learn from therapy, when I did start to go. When people are saying those things to you, at least you can get pregnant. You can always try again, whatever it may be. I had to learn to tell people very kindly because, again, I know that they're just saying those things out of the kindness of their heart and they're not meaning to be, ugly in any type of way. But I would have to tell people, I appreciate it, but that's not helpful right now. And I don't need you to say those things to me right now. It's hard. Again, it's hard when people haven't been through it. I'm sure there's plenty of things that I don't understand because I've never been through it, and I don't think I didn't. I can't say I don't think. I know that I didn't understand all of these things and all of these emotions and feelings and whatever, before experiencing pregnancy loss. But it's hard to explain to people who haven't been through it, but obviously I want to bring awareness to it, and I want you to understand as best you can, even if you haven't been through it. Something else that helped me was staying busy. So like visiting friends and family, going to lunch with a friend or something, finding things to do, even if it was just sitting on the couch and reading a book, trying to find. Another thing my therapist taught me was she'd asked me if I had any coping skills, and I was like, nope, not really. That's kind of why I'm here. And she said, well, what do you like to do? And the first thing on my mind, reading. I love to read. I read a lot. And she was like, okay, that's a coping skill. Anything that you can do that can take your mind off of the trauma and the grief, that is a coping skill. And so I made a list of like 10 coping skills. I was like, okay, walking the dogs makes me happy and takes my mind off of things. Looking through my wedding photos, that makes me happy and takes my mind off of things. Just finding things to kind of distract yourself within reason, obviously healthy coping mechanisms, okay? And then another thing is like self-care. I went and got my hair done like 2 weeks after the miscarriage because I was like, I need to do something to make me feel pretty again and make me feel happy, getting my nails done, whatever. And crying. Sometimes you just have to cry, okay? And I feel like people don't understand that. I cried at work. I cried in my car. Sometimes they were happy tears. Sometimes they were sad tears. Sometimes I was crying because I missed being pregnant. Sometimes I was crying because I'm scared to be pregnant again. Sometimes I was crying because I was worshiping in my car on the way to work and a song just struck me the right way and I just cried because I love Jesus. Anything would make me cry in those few beginning weeks when it was really, really hard and I was very sensitive and everything triggered me. And you just have to find balance, and it's not easy, and it's it's a process, and that's an understatement, but you'll get there. You'll get there. And whatever support you need, whether it's friends or families, or I have actually made a few friends on TikTok, believe it or not. When I first found out I was having a miscarriage, in this day and age, we all turn to social media, and so I was literally searching miscarriage on YouTube and TikTok, and I was just trying to find other women to relate to, and I have made very good friends actually on TikTok, which is crazy to say, but it's so nice. As much as I love my friends and my family, a lot of them haven't been through pregnancy loss. So to be able to talk to somebody who understands how you're feeling has been really, really comforting. So whatever it is, whatever your avenue is to find your people, or whoever you need to talk to, a therapist or your mom or your sister, your brother, your dad, uncle, whatever, talk to them, or journal, or whatever you need to do that is a healthy coping mechanism. Find it and do it. It'll help. And like I said, you'll get there. It's not easy. Grief isn't linear. It's up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And it's going to be like that, and that's okay. Long story short, just do what you need to do and make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you can't take care of anybody else if you're not taking care of yourself. Healing is a process. It's hard, but it's worth it. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that was something I didn't want to reach out for help. Again, the stigma of the thought of being labeled with postpartum depression scared me. And the minute I did it, I felt relief. Do what you need to do to find your relief, get your help, and be able to start the healing process. It's a journey, but it's worth it. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I appreciate it more than you guys will ever know. A lot of this stuff is really hard to talk about. It's a hard thing. It's a really hard thing, and I'm still processing and I'm still healing, but I'm in a much better place now, and I'm grateful that I'm able to talk about it and kind of shed some light on the subject. Per usual, if you guys have any video requests or, topics or anything that you'd like for me to talk about, definitely just let me know. I also just realized that I said video requests. I am not recording this. This is just a podcast. So if you have any podcast subject requests, let me know. But other than that, thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.